Avatar: The Way of Water. This is another one that, I really much enjoyed. Another kind of visual feast, so to speak, especially when it came to like the underwater motion capture. And I'm sure like everyone like me was wondering like why an Avatar sequel didn't come out like a lot sooner. Like 2015 I think was the original projected date for that, but obviously they had to wait for the technology to catch up because James wanted to explore the oceans of Pandora, and there's really no way that you can really do that. So I know like originally with his journey to the Mariana Trench, filmed footage from there and then kind of used that in this movie, but I'm sure like that that didn't really work out. I mean, he still had that great trip down to the Mariana Trench. It's the first person to dive down there because I think it's like 7 miles deep below the ocean level. So in that aspect, he was a trailblazer in that. But when it came to actually creating underwater motion capture, that was going to take a long time. And then not only that, but he was also wanting to do Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5. And for that one, like he wanted to have all the scripts set because he wanted to film 2 and 3 simultaneously and a little bit of 4, just because of like the teenage characters. He didn't want them to have the Stranger Things effect to where suddenly like one film they're like 12 years old and the next film they're like 27 or something. So he wanted to film everything simultaneously. And then obviously with all the visual effects, that took a long time as well. And then it was supposed to come out in 2020, but then with the COVID pandemic, theaters shut down, and they didn't want to do it in 2021 because that's when theaters were starting to slowly but surely come back. But then now, with 2022, theaters are back in motion. They're not as successful as they are, pre-pandemic, but they're still, coming back. So now is the time to finally get Avatar: The Way of Water, and yeah, thank goodness we did, because as of this recording, it's like almost the biggest grossing movie of 2022. It's like about to pass Top Gun Maverick, and I'm sure when this video comes out it'll probably surpass Top Gun Maverick and be like the biggest movie of 2022. And the fact that there were like all these people saying like, oh, Avatar 2 is gonna be a flop, like no one's gonna go see it, it's been too long since the original one came out, which I agree with. It definitely came a little bit too late, but the fact that it came out at all is pretty impressive. I was one of those people who was just like, it's like, come on, just give it a chance. Like I know the first Avatar wasn't like as a cultural phenomenon the year it came out, but didn't really leave behind a legacy, which I agreed with. But the fact that people were saying like, oh, this is gonna be a flop, no one's gonna go see it, I did have some doubts, but I didn't think it was gonna be a flop. I knew people were gonna watch this movie for sure, just based on that first teaser trailer that came out, like the visuals, the music, the underwater motion capture, it's just like breathtaking. That was just the teaser trailer, so I was like very much excited about it. I guess the only thing I was nervous about was just like, is anybody else gonna be really excited to see it? But yeah, obviously all those haters were proven wrong, because now it's made over $1 billion. I know James Cameron was saying that this first one needs to make $1 billion in order to pay off his investment, because with each of the Avatar sequels they kind of average at $250 million to make, and he made 4 of them, so altogether make $1 billion. So yeah, so he's set to make his Avatar sequels, so we'll see how those go. I know the next one's supposed to come out in like 2024, Avatar 3, so yeah, I'm excited to see that one. But yeah, as for the movie itself, the story's a little thin, the characters are a little bit thin, the dialogue's not all that great. But then again, you don't really go to a James Cameron movie for the dialogue and like the characterization of the story, you go for the visuals. And everything with the underwater scenes that the characters go through was just breathtaking. The visual effects were even better than the first movie. There were some moments where I'm just like, how is this not real? Like even like the trailer, there's like some shots where it's just like, oh my gosh, that CGI is like so realistic. So yeah, I'm glad that they took their time to make the visual effects as good as they could be. But yeah, the fact that it was in 3D again, some theaters had kind of like the seats that kind of move. I didn't go to that one. I just went to the theater that had like 3D, and then also had like a higher frame rate, which I'm not a fan of. I know Peter Jackson did that with the Hobbit movies, where all of them were shot in 48 frames per second, where everything kind of looked very sped up and everything looked like too real, where it looked like you can kind of see everything was done like on a set, or it looked like kind of like a soap opera. So I appreciated with Way of Water that it kind of switched between 24 frames per second and 48 frames, where for 24 frames it was just kind of like the normal talking scenes, and then it switched to 48 during the action scenes. And then some of it worked, some of it didn't work, some of it look like, okay, this is a little bit sped up. It's not really like, it doesn't really look all that realistic. But then some of the action scenes, like, okay, yeah, the 48 frames definitely helps. So I'm hoping with Avatar 3, 4, and 5 that they kind of smooth that out a little bit more. They'll have 2 years to figure that out. So hopefully everything will be good with that. But yeah, like it was just like, just a great visual experience, very great emotional experience as well, which, yeah, I'll just go into full spoilers right now. So if you haven't seen the movie, you can just skip ahead a couple minutes. The eldest son dies, that, like, I was getting really choked up at that scene. I remember, like, in like the first Avatar, like I was getting choked up when, like, home tree got knocked over and you see them all, like screaming and everything. But with this one, with eldest son getting killed, like that was like very, very emotional as well. I know some people said they saw it coming, and you can kind of sense like something was going to happen, either like the eldest son or the middle son would die, or like Jake would die or something, because I had a feeling like there's no way these characters can kind of go through this kind of ship sinking battle going on and everyone gets out unscathed. I figured like someone would get sacrificed, but yeah, I had no idea like it was going to be like how emotional it would be once it actually did happen. So once it did happen, I was getting choked up. I was kind of looking over at the guys that I was with, and like I was like, are they choked up too? And then later on, after we left the theater, like when my brother-in-law said they like, yeah, I was getting choked up too. So yeah, it was definitely a very, very emotional experience for sure. And me being about to be a father, seeing that very emotionally affected me. Seeing Neytiri pregnant and seeing Kate Winslet's character being pregnant as well, because like currently my wife's pregnant, so that emotionally affected me as well. Kind of like that being being the protector, trying to be like a protector, being good like husband and father and everything. So yeah, I think that's a really good theme that James Cameron has in movies. Having like so many kids and everything. He wants to be the father that that his kids deserve in a way. He kind of has those themes throughout like the back half of his movies, like Terminator 2 and True Lies, and now with Avatar, Way of Water, and then even like with motherhood with Ellen Ripley over Newt in Aliens, or with Sarah Connor over John Connor in Terminator 2. Like these movies are about family. The fact that Jake and Neytiri are parents now, which I thought was like really good change from the first movie. Gives them more responsibility. I was reading an interview, like James Cameron wanted to evolve Jake's character a little bit more, whereas first where he'd be stupid enough to jump off his Banshee and then jump onto a Turok and everything, but now that he's a dad, he's probably gonna think about it a little bit more. Not that he's like a coward or anything, but because like he has people that he has to be there for. He has kids that he needs to protect. So yeah, I totally kind of relate to that on that level. But yeah, the fact that these kids are going to kind of be like the next generation of this Avatar series is really cool. I think like Loak, the middle son, was probably my favorite character. His relationship with the giant whale, the Tulkun, was really cool. I mean, the whole theme of protecting the oceans, and now with the whole like whaling sequence and like the hunters going after the whales just so they can get that serum that causes the humans to stop aging in general, which it's kind of pros and cons. Like pros, like it was like very emotional scene and everything, which really affected like me and the audience and stuff. But like cons, because like it kind of comes out of nowhere. Because like the first movie is about like the unobtainium, and now this movie was about humans invading. But then it kind of comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh, now we have this kind of serum that stops aging for humans, like, and they don't really address it afterwards. So I think because like maybe there's like a lot of scenes that are on the cutting room floor that they couldn't address, which yeah, I guess another thing. It's just like the runtime, it's like over 3 hours, which I know a lot of people complained about, but I think there's watching the movie, there's not really a ton that you can cut out, because a lot of the scenes that weren't really like plot heavy, they're really more like character driven, and they kind of like build relationships, the teenagers with the other teenagers, Loak with Paikon the Tulkun giant whale creature, Jake Sully and Neytiri, and then the relationship between Quaritch and Spider. Kind of had to build all these different relationships that were going on. So you couldn't really, there's not really a ton that you can cut out, but James was saying like hey, don't feel obligated to keep watching it straight through. You can go pee if you need to. So I thought that was pretty funny. I think it could be a tad bit shorter. Maybe cut like 10-15 minutes out, maybe not like a whole half hour or something in my opinion, but maybe like 10-15 minutes could have been good, just to make it like a solid just 3 hours instead of 3 hours and 14 minutes, I think, or 12 minutes this movie is. So yeah, I think that could have been good. But yeah, I guess briefly to talk about the relationships and stuff, between Jake and Neytiri. I thought Neytiri kind of got a little bit sidelined in this movie because she was like a main character in the first one, but yeah, she didn't really get too much to do. Like she had a lot of cool action sequences and stuff, but she kind of gets pushed aside. But I guess it's understandable because you need to raise up the teenage characters, which I thought all the teenage characters were great. The only one that I kind of had a problem with was Kiri, played by Sigourney Weaver, which I thought was kind of weird. Like I didn't mind her doing like the motion capture, but the fact that they used Sigourney Weaver's voice for that instead of like a teenage girl's voice, I thought was kind of like off-putting in a way. I didn't have a problem with her character. I think it was kind of cool that she was kind of a combination of Grace Augustine and Awa, so she kind of has these kind of like controls nature in a way, which I thought was really cool, and I'm sure they'll explain more of that in the third movie. But for this one, yeah, I just thought Sigourney Weaver playing Kiri was just a little off. But yeah, other characters were great. I think, yeah, Spider was another character that I know a lot of people had a problem with because he would kind of jump back and forth between like his relationship with Jake and his relationship with Quaritch. I thought it would have been really cool if he just kind of just stayed with Quaritch the entire time at the very end, and kind of turned into this villainous character where he's kind of like the inside man for Quaritch and the other humans. But yeah, he decided to kind of go back with the Sully family. And I know there's going to be an awkward relationship between Neytiri and Spider because there's already an awkward relationship because he's a human, and then the humans were the ones that kind of destroyed her home on Pandora. So she kind of has like a tension-filled relationship. But now that she almost tried to kill him at the very end, there's going to be some awkwardness there. So maybe that'll be a motivation for Spider to join Quaritch later on. Because, Quaritch is still alive at the very end of this one. And I thought like they kind of gave him more depth. The fact that they gave him a son, made him a father, so it gave him something more to care about rather than just like, I'm just allowed just to kill Jake and destroy Pandora for all its resources. So I thought they kind of gave him a lot more kind of depth to his character. So I'm excited to see what happens with him in number 3. I'm sure he'll have this whole character arc now that he's a Na'vi or a recumbent, so he's like part Na'vi, part human. So I'm sure like as time goes on, he'll like connect with Awa, and he'll appreciate the environment more. And then if more humans come, maybe he'll be on the side with Jake, and then they can form an alliance and then kind of go against the humans in like a final battle or whatever they decide to do with the sequels. So yeah, I think, like I said before, they kind of improved on the characters a little bit, but it's not like anything spectacular. And as before, like I'm sure Avatar 3, 4, and 5 will continue to develop the characters a little bit more and kind of give more depth, where it's kind of more story and character driven rather than like just about the amazing visuals. So we'll see what happens with that. And I guess just sort of like wrapping my thoughts on Avatar: Way of Water is like, I just really appreciate the fact that James Cameron has this kind of amazing grand vision. He's like, I'm going to do underwater motion capture. It's like, okay, how do we do that? And then the fact that not only does he set these kind of high goals, but he also figures out a way to kind of achieve those. He has like the people around him, experts in their field who they might think he's a little bit crazy in the beginning, but as time goes on, they see how innovative he is, and his genius in a way. So yeah, I can definitely appreciate that for sure. And the fact that anything really that he can imagine, he can kind of get on screen. It's just a matter of like how and when, and the fact that he can actually achieve those things is very inspirational to me. And kind of every time I kind of limit myself in a box of like creativity, I just like watch one of his movies, and it kind of inspires me to kind of think outside the box and kind of expand my creativity. So I can really appreciate him for that, for sure.